Okay, so get ready. Because today, we are diving deep into a world of, well, federations.
Federations?
Yeah. Specifically, the Cloudsea Federation.
Ah, the Cloudsea Federation.
And honestly, I love this kind of stuff, alternate histories, and how different choices could have, totally reshaped our world.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? To think about how things could have been different.
It really is. It's like, what if, right? And for this deep dive, we have this, collection of fragmented chronicles, histories, personal stories.
It's almost like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
It is.
Of a lost civilization.
Yeah.
But instead of, cardboard pieces, we're dealing with empires and destinies.
It's amazing. And what's fascinating to me is how this world, this Cloudsea Federation world, it mirrors our own in some ways, but then takes these familiar threads and goes in these completely unexpected directions.
It does. Take the Cloudsea Federation, for example. They started out as these scattered tribes, much like, many civilizations throughout history. Small, ocean-dependent communities relying on, fishing, pearling. It almost has a Polynesian vibe, wouldn't you say?
Totally. But then they go from these fishing villages to, a global superpower.
You do.
It's how did that happen? Was it one single event? Or was it a series of choices that just kind of snowballed into something massive?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to unpack.
Well, their golden age, from 1200 to 1600 AD, seems to hold some answers.
Okay. Imagine
a fictional Sea Silk Road.
Ooh.
Bustling with trade, these massive ships carrying goods across a vast ocean. It's evocative of those real-world maritime empires, isn't it? The Phoenicians. Venetians, they understood that controlling the seas often meant controlling the flow of information. Resources and ultimately power.
Power, yeah. And that makes me think about Kama, this almost legendary figure who united those scattered tribes.
He was quite a figure, wasn't he?
He was. He's described as this hunter.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Not the typical image of an empire builder.
Not your typical emperor, no.
But he had that spark, that ability to unite people under a common goal. Are there parallels to figures like Qin Shi Huang or Alexander the Great in our own history?
Well, absolutely.
Who emerged during chaotic times and kind of reshaped the map.
Absolutely. It's a recurring theme throughout history. These individuals who seize the moment unite disparate groups.
Yeah.
And forge new paths. And it raises the question, what were the specific circumstances, the societal pressures that allowed those figures to rise? And how would our world look different if they had made different choices?
Right.
Or if someone else entirely had taken the reins?
Those are some big questions.
Yeah.
And it gets even more complex when you consider that the Cloudsea Federation isn't alone, right?
Yeah.
We've got this whole tapestry of neighboring federations, each with its own unique character and, let's be real, its own ambitions.
They do.
Take the Red Sand Federation. Picture a desert-dwelling society, heavily reliant on oil and natural gas.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, right? But here's the twist.
The twist.
They're now grappling with the rise of renewable energy.
That parallel to modern-day oil-producing nations is fascinating, isn't it? It begs the question, how do societies built on the control of one resource adapt when the world just shifts beneath their feet? Do they cling to the old ways, or do they find a way to reinvent themselves? It's a challenge we're seeing play out in our own world right now.
Absolutely. And then there's the Ice Mirror Empire. They inhabit this perpetually icy region.
Oh, wow.
Resource scarce, but incredibly advanced in polar research.
Polar research, huh?
And something called cold condensation energy tech.
Cold condensation.
Cold condensation, yeah.
Interesting.
So it's they're sitting on the next big thing, something that could completely disrupt the existing power dynamics.
Imagine a world where controlling a particular technology gives you an unprecedented edge. Think about the race for nuclear weapons in the 20th century.
Oh, yeah.
Or the current competition for AI dominance. The Ice Mirror Empire's control of cold condensation tech, that could be a game changer, sparking conflict or forcing the other federations to adapt in ways they never anticipated.
It's true. It's almost like these fictional societies are grappling with the same tensions and dilemmas that we face in our own world.
In a way, yeah.
Just amplified and projected on this grander scale.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if there are universal truths about human nature, about the way societies evolve and interact, that transcend the boundaries of reality and fiction.
That's a profound thought, and one that historians and philosophers have pondered for centuries. Yeah. Are we destined to repeat the same cycles of conflict and cooperation, regardless of the setting or the specific technologies involved? Or can we learn from these fictional examples, from the mistakes and triumphs of these alternate societies, and chart a different course for our own future?
Those are some heavy questions to ponder.
They are.
And speaking of charting courses, we've got the Fjord Federation.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Fjord Federation.
These guys are all about manufacturing, robotics, digital tech. Think Silicon Valley or Shenzhen, but on a whole other level.
Wow.
They're at the heart of globalization in this world, driving innovation and pushing the boundaries of what's even possible.
Their story is a stark reminder of how technology can reshape societies and economies.
Yeah.
Just as the Industrial Revolution transformed our world. The Fjord Federation's advancements in robotics and digital technology, they're creating ripples throughout this fictional realm. It makes you wonder, what are the long-term consequences of such rapid technological change? Does it lead to greater prosperity for all?
Right.
Or does it create new forms of inequality and conflict? It's something to think about, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah, it really makes you think. And it's a question that resonates, especially when you consider how the Fjord Federation's success is kind of intertwined with the struggles of other federations, like the Red Sand Federation. Yeah. You know, their dependence on dwindling oil reserves, while the Fjord Federation is surging ahead with new tech. It's a recipe for tension, isn't it?
It is.
Almost mirrors how, developing nations today grapple with globalization, trying to keep pace with the rapid advancements of more developed economies.
It's true. It's like this constant push and pull between those who benefit from the existing order and those who are trying to catch up, sometimes feeling like the rules are rigged against them.
Yeah.
But let's back up a bit. We've been talking about these federations as if they just popped up overnight.
Right.
But they obviously have histories stretching back centuries.
Oh, absolutely. And understanding those histories, those deep roots, is key to understanding their present. The Cloudsea Federation, for instance, their story goes way back. We're talking small, ocean-dependent tribes dating back to 2000 BC. Imagine a time when the world map looked vastly different.
Oh, wow.
When entire continents were yet to be explored.
So how did they go from these scattered seaside villages to a technological powerhouse dominating a sea Silk Road? That feels like a massive leap.
It was a gradual process, driven by both internal factors and external pressures. Imagine you're a tribal leader back then, facing threats from laboring tribes, maybe even pirates.
Yeah.
Alliances start to form, not just for trade, but for mutual protection.
Right.
And over time, those alliances solidify into a more formal political system, a federation focused on maritime power and commerce.
It makes sense. They have the sea. They have the skills. They have the drive to expand their horizons, kind of like those real-world maritime empires we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
The ones who built their power on controlling trade routes and connecting distant lands. Except in this case, they're navigating this fantastical world with its own unique geography and challenges.
Exactly. And their so-called Golden Age from 1200 to 1600 AD was a period of incredible growth and innovation. They were renowned for their shipbuilding prowess, their mastery of navigation, their ability to harness the power of wind and currents.
Amazing.
They even mention a sea Silk Road in their chronicle.
Oh, really?
Imagine a network of trade routes spanning a vast ocean, connecting diverse cultures, exchanging goods, ideas, technologies.
It's like they took inspiration from those historical trade routes that shaped our own world but added their own fantastical twist to it.
Yes.
It makes me think about how world building in fiction can be a way of exploring alternative paths, imagining what could have been if history had taken a different turn.
Absolutely. It's a form of thought experiment, a way of asking what if, and then letting those possibilities play out in a fictional setting. And it's not just about the grand sweep of history. The Cloudsea Federation's chronicles also reveal details about their social structures, their cultural values, their internal struggles. They even mention social reforms during their Golden Age, including the abolition of slavery.
Oh, wow.
Which suggests that their rise wasn't just about technological advancement, but also about evolving their societal norms and finding ways to create a more just and equitable society.
It's like they were trying to build a better world.
Yeah.
Not just a more powerful one.
Exactly.
And it makes me wonder, did those social reforms play a role in their ability to compete on a global scale?
It's a good question.
Did creating a more just society actually contribute to their economic and military success? It's an intriguing thought.
It is. After all, a society that values fairness and opportunity might be more likely to foster innovation, attract talent, and maintain stability. It's a question worth pondering, both in the context of this fictional world and in our own reality.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, but let's be real. It wasn't all smooth sailing for the Cloudsea Federation, right?
No, of course not.
I mean, we know there were wars,
yeah,
internal conflicts, and those tense relationships with their neighbors. What were some of the key turning points, those moments that could have sent them down a completely different path?
Well, their relationship with the Red Sand Federation was a major source of tension, even from the early days.
Oh.
Remember, the Red Sand folks controlled those vast oil and natural gas reserves, resources that were vital for any aspiring empire.
Right.
And as the Cloudsea Federation's influence grew, so did the competition for those resources.
It's almost like a classic Western movie showdown.
Oh, I see it.
You've got the ocean-based power and the desert-based power,
right,
each vying for control of the land and its riches.
Yeah.
Except in this case, they're not just fighting over gold or cattle, but over the very resources that fuel their economies and their military might.
Yeah.
It's a high-stakes game with long-lasting consequences.
Exactly. And just like in those classic Westerns, there were periods of uneasy truce, moments of cooperation when their interests aligned, but always with an undercurrent of suspicion and the potential for conflict to erupt.
It's a dynamic we see throughout history. The struggle for resources, the shifting alliances, the delicate balance between cooperation and competition. And it makes you wonder, is conflict inevitable when multiple powers are vying for dominance? Is it just human nature to clash over resources and territory?
It's a question that has plagued philosophers and historians for centuries. Are we inherently competitive, driven by self-interest and a desire for power? Or are we capable of transcending those base instincts and finding ways to coexist peacefully, even in a world of limited resources?
Looking at our own world, it's not always easy to be optimistic, is it?
No.
We've got our own share of resource conflicts, territorial disputes, and power struggles playing out on the global stage. It's like we're constantly teetering on the brink, trying to find that elusive balance between our competitive urges and our desire for peace and stability.
It's a tightrope walk, for sure. And in the case of the Cloudsea Federation and the Red Sand Federation, that walk became even more precarious as new technologies emerged. The Cloudsea folks, with their focus on cold condensation tech, started to challenge the Red Sand's dominance in the energy sector. Imagine the disruption, the economic anxiety. It's like watching the rise of renewable energy in our own world, threatening the established order and creating both opportunities and uncertainties.
It's like that old saying, the only constant is change. And in this world, just like in ours, technological advancements are driving that change at an unprecedented pace. It's forcing these societies to adapt, to evolve, to find new ways to compete and cooperate in a rapidly shifting landscape.
And those who are slow to adapt, those who cling to the old ways, they often find themselves falling behind, their power waning as the world moves on without them. It's a cautionary tale, both for the fictional societies we're exploring and for our own world.
Speaking of falling behind, let's not forget the Ice Mirror Empire.
Right.
They're the ones who always seem to be lurking in the background, quietly building their strength in that icy, unforgiving corner of the world. What's their story? And how do they fit into this complex web of relationships?
The Ice Mirror Empire. They're a fascinating case study in resilience and adaptation. Imagine a society that has not only survived, but thrived in an environment most would consider uninhabitable. They've had to innovate, to find ways to extract resources from ice, to harness energy from thermal vents, to literally carve out a civilization from a frozen wasteland.
They're like the ultimate survivalists,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of human ingenuity and endurance.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be more focused on simply staying alive than on global domination, but their history suggests otherwise. What drove them to become such a powerful force in this world?
Well, necessity is often the mother of invention, and in the Ice Mirror Empire's case, Those harsh conditions forced them to develop advanced technologies and a fierce determination to overcome any obstacle. They couldn't afford to be complacent, to rest on their laurels. They had to constantly push forward, to find new ways to survive and thrive in a world that seemed determined to crush them.
It's like they took that old adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, to a whole new level.
They did.
And those technologies they developed, those innovations born out of necessity, those could give them a significant edge in the global power game, right?
Absolutely. Their mastery of polar research, their unique energy technologies, their specialized military units trained for Arctic warfare, all of these, they give them a distinct advantage, especially in a world where climate change is altering the geopolitical landscape and making those icy regions more strategically important.
It's like they've been preparing for this moment all along, waiting for the world to come to them.
Yes.
And with their combination of technological prowess and unwavering determination, they might just be the wild card that throws the whole game into chaos.
They really might be. And as these individual federations advance and evolve, they inevitably bump into each other, forming alliances, sparking rivalries. It's a delicate dance of diplomacy and power.
All right, so let's talk about those relationships. We know the Cloudsea and Red Sand Federations have this tense history, but what about the others? Were there any like surprising partnerships or unexpected betrayals that kind of shaped the course of events?
Well, the relationship between the Cloudsea Federation and the Fjord Federation is particularly intriguing.
Oh, okay.
Remember, the Fjord folks, they're those masters of manufacturing, robotics, the whole digital tech scene. They're like the engine of globalization in this world, shaping the flow of information and trade.
Right. They're like this futuristic blend of Silicon Valley and Shenzhen, like a melting pot of innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. But even in a world driven by technology, you can't escape those classic geopolitical tensions, can you?
You can't. And initially, the relationship between Cloudsea and Fjord was one of mutual benefit. They traded technologies, collaborated on projects, almost like a modern-day, free trade agreement, each leveraging their strengths for mutual gain. It's a reminder that even in a world of potential conflict, cooperation can flourish when both sides see the value in working together.
But I have a feeling it wasn't all, sunshine and roses, right? I mean, come on, this is geopolitics.
Right.
There's always that undercurrent of competition, that fear of being outmaneuvered or left behind.
Exactly. As both federations grew in power and influence, their interests began to diverge.
Yeah.
The Cloudsea Federation, with its expanding navy and control over key shipping lanes, started to encroach on the Fjord Federation's traditional sphere of influence. Mm-hmm. Imagine you're a fjord leader seeing those Cloudsea ships patrolling waters that were once your domain.
Right.
It's bound to create some anxieties, some questions about their intentions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's that age-old dilemma, right? Who controls the seas, controls the flow of trade, the movement of goods and resources. And in a world increasingly reliant on global trade networks, that control becomes even more crucial. It's no wonder the Fjord Federation started to get a little nervous.
And to make matters even more complex, the Red Sand Federation, always eager to exploit any weakness, saw an opportunity in this growing rift between Cloudsea and Fjord. They started offering the Fjord Federation lucrative trade deals, whispering tales of Cloudsea aggression, and even hinting at a possible military alliance.
So basically they were playing both sides against the middle.
Yeah.
Trying to weaken both Cloudsea and Fjord while positioning themselves as the power broker, the kingmaker in this emerging global order. Classic power politics.
Classic indeed. And it worked to a certain extent. The Fjord Federation, wary of Cloudsea's growing power and tempted by Red Sand's overtures, began to distance themselves from their former allies. The seeds of distrust had been sown, and it wouldn't be long before they blossomed into full-blown conflict.
And that's where the war we mentioned earlier comes in, right?
Yes.
The one between the Cloudsea Federation and that alliance of Fjord and Red Sand. It's like all those simmering tensions, all those whispers of betrayal and shifting alliances finally boiled over into open warfare.
Exactly. A series of border skirmishes, perhaps intentionally provoked, escalated rapidly. Propaganda machines on both sides churned out stories of atrocities, fueling public outrage and making de-escalation nearly impossible. It's a reminder that in a world of complex relationships and competing narratives, even a small spark can ignite a devastating conflict.
And as we've seen in those personal accounts, those glimpses into the lives of individuals caught in the crossfire, war always comes at a terrible cost. Emma, that Cloudsea nurse struggling to cope with the horrors she witnessed. Leon forced to flee his home with his family. Their stories remind us that conflict isn't just about abstract geopolitical maneuvering. It's about shattered lives, broken dreams, and the enduring scars of trauma.
They do, and it's easy to get caught up in the grand sweep of history, the rise and fall of empires, the shifting alliances and betrayals, but it's those individual stories, those human experiences that truly bring the cost of conflict into sharp focus.
So what happened after the war? Did anyone actually win? Or was it one of those Pyrrhic victories where everyone ends up losing in the end?
It's hard to say there were any true winners. The Cloudsea Federation, though technically victorious, emerged weakened and isolated. The Fjord Federation, despite Red Sand's support, suffered heavy losses. Their economy in shambles. And the Red Sand Federation, though they managed to avoid direct involvement in the fighting, found themselves increasingly ostracized by the international community for their role in instigating the war.
It's like that saying, in war, there are no winners, only survivors.
Yes.
But even in the aftermath of such a devastating conflict, life goes on, right? Societies rebuild, new alliances are formed, and the world keeps spinning.
It does. And the post-war period in this fictional world is just as fascinating as the events that led up to the conflict. We see the emergence of new technologies, new power dynamics, and perhaps most importantly, the rise of the Mystique Federation as a major player on the global stage.
The Mystique Federation. Those wise, secluded folks we talked about earlier, the ones who specialize in medicine and knowledge sharing. I'm curious, how did they go from being these benevolent mentors to playing a more active role in shaping the post-war world? Well,
their reputation for wisdom, their neutrality in the conflict, and their willingness to help rebuild and heal made them ideal mediators in the peace negotiations. They weren't seen as partisan. They weren't driven by territorial ambitions or economic gain. Their focus was on promoting understanding, cooperation, and a shared vision for a more peaceful future.
It's almost like they embody that ideal of a global citizen, someone who sees beyond national borders and prioritizes the well-being of humanity as a whole. In a world often driven by self-interest and power politics, the Mystique Federation's emergence as a leading voice is a hopeful sign, isn't it?
It is, and it raises some interesting questions about the nature of leadership in a complex, interconnected world. Do we need more leaders like those from the Mystique Federation, individuals who prioritize diplomacy, cooperation, and a long-term vision for a more sustainable and equitable world, or are those qualities simply not realistic in a world where power and self-preservation often trump higher ideals?
Those are questions we grapple with in our own world, aren't they?
They are.
As we face challenges like climate change, global pandemics, and the rise of new technologies that could either unite or divide us, we need to think critically about what kind of leadership will best serve humanity in the long run.
We do, and perhaps by exploring these fictional worlds, by examining the successes and failures of these alternate societies, we can gain insights into our own trajectory. Maybe we can learn from their mistakes, identify the patterns that lead to conflict or cooperation, and make more informed choices about the kind of future we want to create.
It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves, using fiction as a lens to examine the complexities of our own world, our own aspirations, and our own flaws. And in the case of the Cloudsea Federation and its neighbors, their journey is a reminder that even in a world of advanced technology and seemingly insurmountable challenges, the choices we make, the paths we choose, they ultimately determine our fate.
So As you reflect on the Cloudsea Federation's journey, consider this. If you are in their shoes, leading a nation striving for prosperity and security in a world teetering between cooperation and conflict, what choices would you make? Would you prioritize diplomacy and alliance building like the Peak Federation, or would you focus on strengthening your military might, preparing for a future where conflict seems inevitable? The answers are never easy, but the questions themselves can help us navigate the complexities of our own world and make more informed choices about the future we want to create.
It's true. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those thought-provoking conversations going. That's how we learn, that's how we grow, and that's how we build a better future together.